Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out to this lovely first night of winter. We can start by saying this meeting takes place in additional and accessible territory for meeting copies. They're all pretty people. There's no addition to the agenda that I'm aware of. So we'll move on to 4, approval of the agenda. Recommendation that council approve the agenda for the June 10th, 2025 meeting as presented. As approved by Councillor Strong, second by Councillor Reports. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion carried unanimous. Approval of the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 meeting. Recommendation that council approve the May 27th, 2025 meeting minutes as presented. Mover, moved by Councillor Bowden, seconded by Councillor Goffney. Any minutes? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion carried unanimous. We do have a presentation tonight, item 6.1. I'd like to call Christopher Quigley up for a presentation on the transformation of dangerous spaces, a public art installation. So, Chris, take the mic there.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thank you, Mayor and councilors. My name is Christopher Quigley, and I'm here today to introduce Transformation of Dangerous Spaces. It's a national public and civic engagement project designed to confront the physical, emotional, and systemic landscapes where gender-based violence and intimate partner violence persists. This project begins with one of the spaces where violence happens. It happened for me, probably happened for most people here. It's in a locker room or in a bathroom. And this project begins and reclaims it through community-driven dialogue and large-scale art installations. And our goal is to spark national conversations while building local resilience. So just to give you a bit of context about who I am and where I come from. I've spent almost 20 years, and maybe this is a good place to start. We'll move forward in a moment. I spent about 20 years working at the intersection between public art and architecture, civic infrastructure across North America. And my work has some pretty high profile urban development projects, such as Lansdowne Park and Hillsborough. One of the first projects that was a multi-million-dollar project where I did about 140 custom lighting poles for PWL architecture in Vancouver. We redid all of Lansdowne Park. We worked with Derek Porter, a light artist out of New York, on the Georgia Tech Library, a giant installation piece. And we've also done collaborations internationally with artists like Vincent Chu out of Vancouver. I've worked with some fabricators that are behind some record-breaking achievements, like the world's largest chandelier in Cleveland, Ohio. Many places needed the chandelier. It was Cleveland. And so we got the Guinness Book of World Records for that. It's between the intersection between the financial and the theater district. And right now I'm overseeing one of the last projects that my company is working on, a 38-story media facade for a property development company called CoStar in Richmond, Virginia. And we're working with Moment Factory out of Montreal to create the images along with a very well-known public artist. And so we have done some very large scale, and this is actually one of the largest and most ambitious developer-led art installations in North America. But for me, transformation of dangerous spaces is deeply versatile. This comes after me surviving 2-year fatal strokes in 2023 and emerging with a new artistic vision. I founded a nonprofit called Alchemy Art Workshop. Kind of a bit of a cart before the horse, but I created the artwork and I created the nonprofit organization to help produce it. And it's based here in Nova Scotia. This project not only reflects my experience in large-scale placemaking, but also to a commitment to addressing some of the most urgent and uncomfortable and often invisible issues facing our community. We can go to next. So, transformation of dangerous spaces. This actually started as a conversation about housing. I went to Kellyanne Township in January 2025 after the death of Gillian Mosher. She was the sixth woman killed in Nova Scotia due to intimate partner violence, and that was just in our town, 900 or 1,000 people. It was, it hit me hard, and it was something where I felt like I needed to get involved. So I had gone to Kelly and Hampshire, who was the executive director of programs, with the housing initiative. That's kind of how this started, and we had this conversation between the two of us about systems that fail men, the systems that fail women, and how the systems are now starting to fail young men and boys. And this project came out of that because I have a deep personal connection to the topic. It isn't abstract, it isn't metaphorical, and it's historical, and it's personal. And I wanted to take something that was painful and turn it into something that was going to be transformative for other young men and for men in our communities. We can move to the next slide, then we go to the next one. I'm not keeping up with this as well as I should. Thank you. Again, this is lived experience, how I grew up, what I grew up with, and how I was, and the information that I received in the locker rooms, the vernacular, the violence, the transfer of violence between that, and how that is now transmuted from an analog source to now digital, where the voices are louder and it's being propagated at a scale and at a scale that we just can't imagine right now. So we'll go to the next one. So again, this is going to be an immersive, interactive 8-stall experience. This is meant to be within a controlled gallery environment. We're reproducing some very high technology pieces, and they will be reimagined spaces like a bathroom stall. And each one of the 8 is going to confront a different facet of gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. And it's meant to travel. It's meant to travel to universities, to public spaces, to art galleries, and prisons, and any other place that we could possibly get this in as a program. This will actually have some trauma-informed practice behind it as well, that at the beginning of each installation and at the end, there will be a trauma-informed therapist that will be there to provide a bit of input at the very beginning, so that there is explicit consent when you go into this, because it's going to be visceral. The 8 stalls are very emotional, they are based on truth, and they are based on survivor stories, and they're based on men's stories. This piece is meant to confront them. It's meant to have them acknowledge where one of the places where we learn this information and how we transfer it, and how it's being transferred onto the boys and young men now. Go to the next one. So again, this is not just standard gallery art. This is actually action. And so I'm going to go into a few, so go to the next slide. These are the 8 slides, although I'm going to highlight 3 of them. So one of the first ones is going to be the locker room stall, where participants sit in recorded misogynistic locker room talk. But this exposes how male socialization from analog spaces has been translated into today's digital isolation, and how it normalizes harm and violence. The choice stall is a really interesting one, where these have 2 buttons on the inside, but there are a lot of other interactive components, where it forces the participant into a no-win scenario, showing them without an option to say no, yes means nothing. The role reversal stall helps split the script, surrounding participants with peepholes and shadows, staring eyes that make them feel objectified and surveilled. And then the 21-second stall, which will count down in silence before chaos erupts, a stark reminder of how fast violence can escalate and how critical intervention is. And 21 seconds is actually how long it takes you to go to the bathroom. It takes you how long it takes to go pee. For a human being to go to the bathroom, it takes 21 seconds. And I want to show how much violence and what can happen in that 21 seconds. So each experience is not meant to shame, but to awaken, to turn passive observation into active responsibility. Each stall is designed to simulate psychological pressure using sound, light, text, projection, and motion sensors. But this is not a passive experience. It's already, and it's fully accessible, transportable, and designed to fit into galleries and spaces and public buildings and universities and town halls, even some corporate environments. A few statistics, and there'll be some more that go through here, that 1 in 3 women, and I think the number is probably higher than this now, but it can experience intimate partner violence. That is a public health crisis, and that's a justice issue. And yeah, that's a local government issue. And so despite the decades of tireless daily advocacy, education, and awareness campaigns, those numbers still remain stubborn. One reason is that too often the people that need to be part of this conversation aren't, and it's the men. You need to be involved in this as well, and that was something that was stated in the mass casualty report, that men need to step up, men need to have a voice. We created the problem, we have to start fixing it, we have to be part of the solution, and this is a way to start now. This project is just my response, one man's response to the call, an attempt to show up, to listen, and to take responsibility. I don't pretend to have all the answers for this, but what it begins with is real change and accountability, vulnerability, and a willingness to feel something. Next slide. So this integrates really well into some federal and provincial and municipal gender-based violence intervention frameworks. I have been presenting this in other town councils around the South Shore. I'm here with Deputy Mayor Colin Kingsmill from the Home Bay. I presented to them and requested an endorsement letter of support for the project, which they were very gracious and granted. We have also presented to Modal, the city of Halifax, and I'll be doing a 27 city civic tour much like this in municipalities all across Canada between now and end of January. So it also fits in with public safety strategies. Modal is one of the few that are taking on a very decided approach towards gender-based violence, including a lot of policies and a lot of programs moving forward. And so our municipal outreach to help community wellness mandates. So this actually has a lot of tools that are included with it, like visitor feedback, impact tracking, and optional facilitated discussions with community educators, trauma therapists, and partner organizations like transition homes and shelters across the country. And we'll go to the next one. We are well over right now, so we're actually engaged with probably about 120 organizations right now across the country. And advocacy groups as well to help drive systemic change with this and to deliver a visceral educational, artistic, endeavor. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so in 2023, and this number was staggering, it was 123,319 police reported intimate partner violence cases. And that's 1 every 4 minutes. That's about 338 a day. And so 78% of those victims are women and girls, and 44% is also never reported. So these numbers are still remarkably staggering for where we're at. So right now, what I'm asking for right now is endorsement from the town of Lunenburg as a supporter and an endorsement of this project. I'm not asking you to fund it. I'm asking you to support it. I'm asking you to provide a letter of endorsement so they can get outside funding from the federal government, from the provincial government, and from philanthropic organizations. Like Home Bay, like Modal, like Halifax. Sue Bookchin has also signed off on this and provided me with a letter of recommendation and a fantastic endorsement, along with Kellyanne Hampshaw from Harbor House and Susan Morgan Greek, Jessica Fancy Landry, and I'll be getting a meeting with Alana Hurdle and with another Nova Scotian Justice Minister, Sean Fraser. And I'll be meeting them in Ottawa in September, and I've asked them to read this as a standing order in the House of Commons in the September sitting in the fall sitting. So, go to the last. So, transformation of dangerous spaces is not about blame, it's not about shame, it's about acknowledgement, and it's about breaking the silence. And it's about standing in the discomfort long enough to understand what others truly endure. And we believe that every community has dangerous spaces and every community has the power to transform them. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm open to taking questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Christopher. We were reading the report last night in your presentation. It was a mind blowing when you read all the numbers, the percentages, statistics. It's a sadness to where we sit today's society. But I'll open to my colleagues if they have any questions on the table.
Thanks, your worship, just and as much comments as question, I think I've I commend you on what you're doing. I think it's a really interesting take on how to deal with the situation as you laid it out very clearly. And a number of my colleagues attended the International Women's Day event that was in Lunenburg here in March, and certainly the commissioner who attended that meeting spoke about the importance of men being a part of the conversation and seeing you take the lead in this way, and it's very unique and creative way to put some passion around it. I think is really remarkable and hopefully provocative enough to have an impact. So it's very possible project that you're taking. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else around the table? Councillor Reports.
Just to follow up on what the deputy mayor had to say, yes, we did find it very interesting and very sort of inspirational that the speaker at the International Women's Day event made the same kind of comments that you're making, that it's time for men to become involved in being part of the solution. And I think that it's a very unique way of presenting these issues to members of the public, and it's wonderful. Looks great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? I see what we, the second last page is their last page, what we were seeking, and I'd say we can, definitely give you a public endorsement, a letter endorsement from our council, like other municipalities have done. And then I just leave this with yourself and with our staff, just not picking up.
Sorry, George, I did just have another question as you were speaking, and you mentioned about the trauma and how powerful this could be in having people. Are you working with people in the medical field to? We're talking about doing an endorsement of whether who would have better understanding than any of us here from a medical perspective what the encounter with your art installation in different settings.
The original concept of this went out, and I sent it out to academics. I'm not an academic, I'm not a policymaker, I'm not a frontline worker. I was just asked to help with it, come up with something. And so when I had sent this to Kellyanne, she also asked me to send it to Sue Bookchin from BPP, who was very actively involved in the mass casualty report. And she had mentioned that when she read, this is a very large 20-page written document about how this thing is meant to work, the technology that's behind it, like for some leading edge technology that's being included in this piece. And her only comment was exactly that, was how do you plan on this? And she's like, I really strongly suggest that you get some trauma therapists from communities. So as we move this across the country, there will be community engagement with those in those local communities, because they'll know better about what they need in that community. This is an overarching item that is meant to, produce a reduction. It's meant to get men to sit in, it's meant to get men to take some acknowledgement. But who exactly those people are at this stage, we're not there yet, but it will be through community organization. I'm working with Mo Green from Bridges and his guys works regarding that. He's been speaking with his directors about how they can be involved. So I'm working with men's organizations across the country, women's organizations, ministries, to get the name, get this word, and get this project in front of the people that need to see it. So there will be trauma-informed therapists. We need to have, as my original concept was to kind of push people in the deep end of the pool of parenting. I have to take a more nuanced approach to this. So that was it was the one main suggestion that came out from Sue, and then when we met again, she was like, yeah, whatever I can help with this. And I've got a remarkable board of directors that are on board, that are town councillors. These are people that have been involved in charities from the Princess of Wales Foundation, in in England to one of my other board of directors, retired officer Patrick King from the RCMP, who spent 10 years in this community and in Mahone Bay. I have remarkably careful, I don't know the right word that I'm thinking of, but they are meant to steward this to help guide it through. It's not something I could do on my own. And they've been remarkably helpful in getting into Americans and supporting the scale. And yeah, that's. I'm babbling, but yes.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we get that letter of endorsement, you know, ASAP. And then I leave this with you and with staff, maybe if you need anything else from us, just go through staff, and I'm very intrigued by the whole, in product, when you get to present it, have it in communities. I'd love to see it somewhere around here, you know, sometime in the future, but that would be, that's between your board and our staff to figure out where a good location would be and how it might work and everything like that. No, thank you very much for your presentation, and just reach out if you need anything. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you all very much for your time.
So next on the agenda is item 7. We have no public input questions, so read the rules. So go on to 8.1, a letter of support request for remembrance day flyby for Royal Canadian Legion. There's a report in here, documents and a recommendation there, so I'm here to move that recommendation. So
I move that council authorize the mayor to provide a letter of support to the Royal Canadian Legion Bridgewater Branch number 24 and 83 special events, 1 Canadian Air Division, for a low-level remembrance day flyby of Town of Lunenburg on November 11th, 2025, and that the required contact information be submitted as requested.
the move is there a second? Second by Councillor Strong. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. There is a letter in there from a resident on the condition of Maple Avenue. Maybe we'll just get the staff to respond, which is the response stating where it's listed in the budget currently, and that we are always looking at ways to fund projects earlier than it's budgeted for, so it's on our radar with that way. So that's about all we have to talk about at this point. 9.1, we're on to the request of direction for the draft noise bylaw options. We all have a new updated report in front of us with some notes taken from the previous meetings and some possible edits, changes, additions. So does anyone like to speak on that at this point? Oh, go ahead. Oh.
Thank you. So yeah, you can see in your agenda package, there's some different proposed wording, and this is kind of a request for direction discussion. So based on what we heard in the public hearing, and council's input from the last meeting, we're not going to make any decisions. Staff are just looking for council's input on some of the proposed wording. However, there is something I want to bring up in the speaking notes, and we'd love council's input on it. I was speaking to a resident on Friday afternoon, kind of after that meeting, Shania and I came up with a new clause to put in there that we think we kind of need that happy medium of what we're looking for. It's not in the report, so I'll bring it up here. Basically, we're looking at add another clause that would be more of a proactive clause that does use decibels, but when installing mechanical equipment. So essentially, the intent would be that before someone installs like an exhaust or a fan or an HVAC, they would check in first and say, okay, this equipment cannot exceed 50 decibels. So again, being proactive, so we're not getting to the point where they install a really noisy machine. Because if that happens, the way that the bylaw is currently being proposed to write, we can still act on it, but again, it would be a reactive complaint and investigation. So we're trying to have that proactive approach where people would check in first before they install it. So just wanted to add that, so that's not in your report. But that is something we have talked about, I think would make good sense, and it's fine going forward. So other than that, everything else is in the report, so if you have any questions, should I happy to answer them?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I just like to comment if I may, number one, I love the new little addition you just fired around us, I think it makes a lot of sense. The one thing I'd be very careful of is when you are buying equipment. If it says it's only up to 50 decibels when you buy it, you have to monitor it closely, because unfortunately with any other kind of mechanical device, if you don't maintain it or replace parts, your dishwasher, for example, is a lot louder in year 5 than it is the day you install it, right? So that's one thing that I think the business owners or the contractors have to be aware of, just because it passed the decimal reading in 2025 per se when they bought it or installed it, might not pass the reading in 2030 if they don't properly maintain it, right? So that's something we have to be aware of, they should be aware of too, because it's all connected, right? And I like the revised, with a lot of the suggestions you're making is almost like a blended or hybrid approach, so the decibel meters are there if needed, but we don't rely on them solely to solve our noise problem, so there's a basic a blended version of a lot of common sense but then if rubber does hit the road, you do have the decibel meter to use, so I do like that part of the changes, so what I like to personally see is that we send this back to staff to come back with a finalized hybrid blended policy, and then start the process where we did a month and a half ago, and see where it goes from there, and present it again and reading and see what people think of it, go from there. That's just my suggestion. So does anyone else have any things that? Deputy Mayor?
I just comment, Kayla, that I think that certainly the concern of I raised to have last, we read this before, what you mentioned, we should sort of just so lot of so that's very helpful. And also the I think with the recommended or the edits that have been made, it would be great to have this come back to us as soon as possible for furtherance of the process of approval.
So maybe if we get a motion to direct staff to go back and retweak the bylaw, come back at the next available date.
Yeah, at this point, because council has already gone through first reading and seen it a couple of times, I would say this council is great. It doesn't significantly alter the intent of the original bylaw that was first given first reading. So given this general direction, because we've gone forward first reading, staff based on this feel comfortable to just bring it back, and they could be there for second final approval at a future meeting. And recognizing the public can still weigh in, should they want to, so if council feels comfortable, we could bring it back every meeting. This meeting.
Great, so you need a motion.
Alright, we're good.
You gotta try to help me, you love motion.
I love.
Okay, we won't get much on this. Everyone's agreeing with it. Okay, I'll do this. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on to 10. Oh, and thank you very much, by the way, to the staff for taking everything you've heard the last couple of meetings and putting it together in a document that really person would read, really understand and makes sense. So again, thank you so much for all your hard work. We're already getting closer. Okay. Yeah, 10.1. LUB amendment rezoning of 280 Montague Street. There was a report there in front of us, and we're Trevor, or who's Trevor?
Thank you, Your Worship, the chair. I'm here tonight to present the application to rezone 280 Montague Street. It's currently zoned as a marine industrial property. It has been used for commercial purposes. The applicant wishes now to use the building as a dwelling. They do have dwelling units already that exists inside the building, and they want to bring that into compliance with the bylaws. No residential use is permitted in the marine industrial zone, thus necessitating the rezoning. Neighboring properties directly adjacent on Montague Street are zoned medium density residential use, marine form. Directly abutting across Montague Street is lower density residential use, Town of Lunenburg form. The applicants wish to have the same zoning as their directly adjacent neighbors. And this did go to planning advisory committee on May 5th. Planning advisory committee moved to hold a public participation meeting, and that was held at the June 2nd meeting of the committee, and they made a recommendation to council to allow the zoning at that time. I'm not going to get into a lot of details of the remainder of the report. I will say it is consistent and in keeping with our evaluation criteria. And I am open to taking your questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments of the fire or Councillor Strong?
I just have a question, and maybe someone was asking the same question, so I'm asking for both of us. How do you get an unpermitted residential use?
Well, I think the name implies that you put something in your building with them applying for the appropriate permits. So to explain that.
In reading the document, could it also been the fact that every dwelling, every building on that side of the street, except for food land and the offices, are houses right now, and they've always been houses, but for some reason, when we changed the MPS and the LUB, we decided to say housing wasn't allowed in those areas that currently have housing, so we just grandfathered 10 houses that were already there. Could that be?
I think there's an output of that, but I do know a little bit about the history. It's my understanding that the applicants may have had an opportunity at that time to rezone their property to residential, but they also operate boat locker. And that would mean shutting that business down. So I think that was the choice they were presented with at the time. They chose to retain rural industrial use. All three of those buildings are in the marine form zone, which coincides with the future land use map, meaning that if they were to ever really switch from a residential use, it would go back to the working waterfront. So that's what it says.
Thank you. Well, any other questions? There's a recommendation to do first reading, so we're ready to move that at this time. Go ahead, Councillor Reed.
I move that council give first reading to amendment to the land use bylaw to rezone 280 Montague Street, PID 606-96663 from marine industrial to medium density residential.
Moves or seconder? Councillor Fullerton. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried, unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. And next on the agenda is a tender award bandstand restoration. So says I guess Tyson here with Dave.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening, I'm presenting a report on the Bandstand Restoration Tender Award. The recommendation in our report is that council award the Bandstand Restoration Tender to Dora Construction for the amount of $328,642.55 plus tax. So the background, going back to May 2024, serious structural issues were identified with the bandstand, and it was immediately closed for any use. So the scope for the rehab project is replacement of the steel deck, and that's the structural steel supporting the deck. New wood decking, trim boards and hardware. Blasting and recoating of the steel columns, and a new timber accessible ramp to improve the access for everyone. So within the town's 25-26 capital budget, and going back to March 11, council's already pre-approved the budget of $345,000. for this project. The tender for the bandstand closed on May 29th and has a validity for 60 days. We received 2 tenders. So bit of a range there in prices. And within the amounts there's an allowance for materials testing of $10,000 and there's a built-in contingency of $30,000. So looking at the lowest price there, we're 10% or a little bit better. We also included 2 provisional items. So provisional item gives us a choice whether we want to include the item in our scope or not, once we see what the price is. So those 2 items were supplying and installing new wood painted railings and bench to match the existing appearance. And then construction of a new roof ornament. So the placing of the existing roof ornament is already included in the scope. This would just give us the option to get a new one and then place that up there. So within the review of the tender, staff are recommending we go with the original scope, and we also include the new wood painted railings and benches for the extra $6,736.50. In terms of the financial aspect, as I said, we have the approved budget amount of $345,000. And then when we take the tender amount that Dora have offered and apply the net HST, it gets us to an amount of $341,318. So we're just inside of that budget. So it's either really good or really lucky, but whichever it is, it's within budget, so that's a positive. Another thing that's not included in the reports, Dora have indicated they might start working early July, and then they've indicated a 12-week construction schedule plus the 2 weeks for the provisional item. So they're looking at sort of end of September, mid-October, provided that nothing's changed for them since the tender went in. So the tender came in, as I said, May 29th, so there hasn't been a big opportunity for this to change. Staff have done a good job turning this around quickly. That concludes the report. For any questions?
Thank you, guys. Good to be lucky and lucky to be good, so we're right on this stuff. So anyone have any questions for Dyson on the Bandstand? I'd just like to say I am so happy this is on here. This is actually moving forward. When it looks like we're going to be up and running for the if this goes through up for the lighting of the trees and the Christmas and holiday festival. So great job staff getting this forward this time. So is anyone prepared to move the motion in front of us? Moved by Councillor Strong, second by Councillor Fullerton. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. So notice the motion section will start this week on my left, Councillor Fullerton.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Great,
Nothing for my son.
Councillor Ballard.
Nothing.
I just like to say before it goes past me, I like to congratulate Councillor Strong. She's become a Grammy yesterday. Congratulations to a healthy baby boy. Congratulations. And Councillor Strong.
Thank you, for the record. I won't take too much of your time, but my committee meetings, that I want to report on was the Lunenburg County Foundation. Recently held a citizenship ceremony and celebration afterwards. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. It's out of the country, but by all accounts, and I'm sure that the deputy mayor may add to this, it sounds like it was a great thing. Secondly, the cultural tourism economic impact study is underway. And I've been seeing comments on Facebook from the public, and it's hoping to declare a few things now today. Where these words might go a long way. The town of Lunenburg, with the support of the co-op, is a continuing work to better understand and strengthen cultural tourism in our community. This includes both the cultural tourism economic impact study that is now underway. They've already gone through one study. And the cultural tourism plan, which is the one we've been through. We are currently reviewing the draft plan that was provided by the tourism plan, and it's currently under review by staff and are working through it. So what is cultural tourism? This comes up a lot from the public, so I'm proud to be able to tell you in clear words that while all tourism brings visitors to town, cultural tourism is specifically about people coming to experience our local culture, heritage, arts, traditions, and way of life, the things that make Lunenburg unique. So what's happening now with the study that's underway? A business survey is currently open until June 30th. We're attempting to reach every business in the community to provide information about what could be better or what's working or what's not working. Cultural resource mapping workshops will occur in July, on July 9th. So everybody please mark that down on your calendars. And there will be sessions throughout that day over to the community. And we'll be promoting this in the next couple of weeks. A visitor survey will also be a part of this study, and it will run through from July right through until September. So that's that for that. And then I just wanted to also mention that the time capsule on Lunenburg's birthday was exciting, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. I wanted to mention that this past weekend was also the 20th anniversary of the reopening St. John's Anglican Church. So if you heard 20 bells on weekend, it was because reopening. And after the Montague run, which was another event, it was a packed full weekend. Councillor Reports and I decided to catch a meal uptown, and the St. John's chimer Peter Allen went back to the church and chimed bells to say happy birthday, Lunenburg, or to send you all singing along with it uptown, including tourists. And it was a wonderful moment for both residents and tourists joining in celebrating their day. That's it for me. Oh, the birthday part. I want to wish Diana Francis a happy birthday. It's coming up later this week, and where there's everybody else ample opportunity to do the same. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, Councillor Dodd.
Just a couple things, last night I went to Luno's Academy's drama club interpretation of Finding Nemo Junior. Very good, very funny. I'm told it's sold out for tonight, but there is one more performance tomorrow night, it's limited to tickets. So if you're looking for a nice family night out, I recommend that you go see the play. Secondly, the time capsule. It was a great event for my family. A few tears here and there. But I want to share with you, and I hope he doesn't kill me. My nephew Max sent me a text. I had sent him a text after he got home, thanking him for coming down for the weekend. But probably we had no choice, but anyways, he did come down and he sent me this reply back. He said, "Thank you for inviting me to come down and for a great weekend. I'm really glad I got to experience this, and even though when I was 1 year old that I was thought about and I was involved with all the stuff, which looking back, I really appreciate." So I want to thank Max again, I want to thank staff, I want to thank all my colleagues. There were some things in our package from my dad to Max, which was a personal letter, which I started to read over his shoulder, and I thought, no, I better not do this. But I think in time that we'll probably share that with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Just to reiterate, just about the citizenship ceremony, because I was able to attend, out of the town, it was a very wonderful opportunity to welcome new citizens or new Canadians. And I think it was very moving for those people who were able to take part in that ceremony, and it was a wonderful event afterwards that great entertainment, and so it was very well done. So congratulations to the Academy Foundation and to all of our Canadians who hopefully felt proud to be there as we were to welcome them. And nothing was mentioned. Wanted to say that that's the work that happens because of local community organizations, so the Canadian Door Racing Association and the Lunenburg United Soccer Club collaborate on pulling that off, and they do a phenomenal job. So congratulations to those organizations, and it was a great event for the community, as the mayor said. Nice to have him and Emily there to congratulate all of the runners or the winners, and congratulations to our area Councillor Babida for completing the course. And I just want to say, because Councillor Strong is so awesome at recognizing everyone else's birthday, I want to just say best wishes to her on her birthday.
Thank you very much, everybody. I just like to add, it was a busy past week, 10 days. So thank all my colleagues around the table for attending different events. I think this weekend was a testament to the efforts that this group has put in between staff, council, the citizens of the community, and the organizations within the community. It really was a wonderful weekend. Every event was well attended. Volunteer groups, again, I saw staff at a lot of the events. A lot of our councilors that were able to be there were there. So honestly, I sent this to my colleagues earlier, and I mean it. Weekends like this was one of the rewarding weekends for being able to sit in this chair. And it's one of the reasons I pinch myself almost every day I wake up, and I realize I'm the mayor of this wonderful community. It's because of citizens like yourselves and organizations and the team that's surrounded with it that makes it all worthwhile. So again, thank you very much. So we'll move on to number 12. If there's anything that I know of right now, basically, if we have any items, we can forward them to staff, right? Caleb? Okay, and when we get some items for committee of the whole meeting, or staff feels we have some reports ready that we're working on now, then they'll let us know, and we'll schedule the next meeting. Currently, there is one scheduled for the first Monday in July, but if there's not, right? Candidate, hey, we won't be having a candidate, so we'll stay tuned for the next meeting. So we're a little busier again, and so is everybody else. Deputy Mayor?
Just, which is a hazard of our recognition that we try to do with this open opportunity, just a shout out to our Heritage Society and Genealogy Society too, who also hold events with and which was wonderful opportunities for citizens to enjoy the heritage assets in our town. So shout out to those groups as well.
Thank you for those. Yeah, there was so much going on this weekend that we just could possibly be everywhere. So there's the motion action was just there in the agenda package every meeting, and there's no items for closed session. So motion for adjournment in order. By Councillor Babino, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.